Welcome to the Headwaters Science Center 3:30 live show. Today, we're going to be talking about competition, and we're going to be applying it to our reef ecosystem. If you guys remember from last week, I'm Spencer Potter, and we talked about this reef again, and we talked about the nutrient cycle, and that plays into how partly of what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about how do these fish, what do they compete for? Are they competing for light? Are they competing for food, new nutrients? Are they competing for space within the tank? And then who are they competing against? Are they competing against themselves? Are they competing against other species? So let's just take a look in this tank and see what we can observe. So as you can see, there are many species packed into this little area. And we could term that biodiversity. Use the term biodiversity. And when we were panning the aquarium, you might have got a glimpse of some of these sponges. These sponges here, you can see one of these is purple and one of these is yellow. And you can see that they're kind of intertwined on there. So right away, I would say that this yellow sponge and this purple sponge would be competing for space, which would be a valuable resource in a crowded tank. And what are they? Are they competing against themselves, or are they competing against different species? Well, if they are the same species, we use a term called intraspecific competition, and if they are competing against if they're competing against other organisms that are not the same species, that'd be interspecific competition. Let's take a look at our anemones. You can see that they are definitely prominent in this central area of our reef tank. You could say that they don't really have to compete with a lot of other organisms, or if they do, they've been pretty dominant while competing. You could see that these anemones have been competing with the sponges underneath. If you could see that there are some purple and yellow sponges right underneath. So I would say that would be a interspecific competition between the anemone and the yellow and purple sponge. What are they competing for in this specific area? I'd say that the anemone is outcompeting the sponge for sunlight, and they don't eat the same things, so I don't know if they're really competing on the same level at the food level, but they are competing for space. Let's see what else we have in this tank. So you can see we have a lot of colorful fish in our tank. We have some big ones, and we have some small ones, just like that. Let's think about, what are these fish competing for? How are they competing? Are they competing for the same things? Now I would say that a lot of them are competing for the same things. I'd say that a lot of them are competing for the same food. They all eat similar foods. They don't really have to compete for light because there's plenty of light. And some of them, like these clownfish, are competing for space. These clownfish are pretty territorial over their sea anemones. You can see our yellow tang here is exploring the substrate here, playing in the fast current. And it looks like they kind of know that it's feeding time. They kind of look like they are ready to eat. So, just like we talked about, they compete for resources. And what we're going to be showing today is, how do they compete for food? We have an assortment of silver-side fish, bloodworms, and misk shrimp. And I can't find what I was supposed to give the anemones. Alright. Well, looks like they're all going to be competing today for the same stuff. Alright, so we're going to see how do they compete for food. Let's see them. Not so much how do they compete, but we'll just see them compete. You can see that all the fish are going straight to the food, and some of them are even fighting over the same piece of food. Why do you think we are so cautious of what is competing in this tank? Well, part of the reason why we pay attention to competition within an ecosystem is to manage population. Just like if you have an apex predator disappear from your food web, you will have typically have a surplus in some specific organisms that can lead to further cascading events and lead to an unstable ecosystem.
So Spencer, the clownfish are always hanging around the anemones, and the other fish aren't. Why is that?
The anemones and the clownfish actually have a mutualistic relationship to in between them two. Mutualistic relationship means that both of the organisms benefit. So the clownfish is benefiting by being around the anemone, because the anemone provides protection. It provides a structure to live in, and then the anemone is benefiting because the clownfish keep everything clean in their area. There are different types of relationships. There are parasitic types of relationships. There's mutualistic types of relationships, just like here. And then there's commensalism relationships.
How do the anemones provide protection for the clownfish?
The anemones have a sting toxin in. I have to get some water quick. All right, I got some water. We're good to go. All right, so yeah. So the clownfish are unique because they have developed a type of mucus that surrounds their body that the anemone agrees is okay. Most fish do not have that type of mucus surrounding their body, and the anemone will try to attack that. They'll use their stinging probes and try to eat them. You could see that the anemone has caught a small piece of silver side and is wrapping it up into its mouth. The anemones, they only have one mouth, one opening to go in and one opening to go out. So they do all their business through one orifice. Well, if you would like to see our reef tank in person, you can come on down to downtown Bemidji at the Headwaters Science Center. We are open seven days a week, 9 to 5 or 9:30 to 5, Monday through Saturday, and Sunday. Stop on by after lunch. We are open from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. on Sundays. So, thanks for tuning in again, and I will see you all next week.